Robin has requested, we're ready to go. So I would like to make some introductions. It's going to take a minute of introductions, so bear with me because we have a program to tell you about and a workshop to tell you about so that you can hopefully take it. And I don't know if Janice Brandon and Jeffrey Newell are here, but there are co-presidents, and we have a new director, Tom Blackman. I have not met him yet, but everybody's very excited about him. Special thanks to Ginger Mayaver, who is our program director for Rocky Neck. This is a new position, and she's been amazing getting our announcements out and putting them out in a professional way. She couldn't be here because she has COVID. Our thanks to our Goetemann Artist Committee, Elizabeth Bish, Jeff Marshall, Vanessa Mihalik, Jana Coffin, Gabrielle Rossmer, Maura Cronin, and Anna Wojcik. Many of them are here. I was going to ask them to stand up. I don't think I'll make them do that. Thank you. This Goetemann Artist Residency program is dear to my heart. It started for me on the yellow cushions outside the Goetemann Gallery, now called the Cove Gallery, with all those conversations and arguments about art I used to love having with Gordon. When he got sick, he asked me to continue on. It's been a legacy thing. More specifically, the GAR, Goetemann Artist Residency, founded in 2005, was created by Gloucester painter Gordon Goetemann. It was founded to encourage the exchange of ideas, to raise all our sights to the possibilities of learning from each other. During these years, we've welcomed and shared ideas with hundreds of artists throughout Cape Ann and this country and overseas. We have sought creative ideas from others and in turn shared our creative vision as well. Some programs, such as the Distinguished Artist Teacher, started in 2008, and that has included invited artists Joan Snyder, a national treasure, and last year Amber Schoon, Robin Colodzin's mentor, and before that, Catherine Kehoe, Tim Hawksworth, and our own Barbara Moody. A complete list is on our Goetemann Artist Residency website. Our other program is the Environmental Installation 1-month residency in September, our collaboration with the Ocean Alliance. This year we welcome Eileen DeRosas. So we have two events that I'd like to announce, and then I would like to introduce Robin. Our 2003 Distinguished Artist Teacher Workshop is the artist Danielle Tegeter. Her workshop is at the huge Montserrat Studio with space for 12 artists from August 8th to 11th. Please ask any of us about signing up for this or go to our website for more details. Her talk at the Cape Ann Museum is on August 12th. We have Vanessa Michalik to thank for this. She was impressed by a talk given by Danielle and connected with her. My fundraiser exhibition of early, mostly figuratively related work and collages from 1970 to 2000 with great markdowns to make money to support the Goetemann Residency opens November 4th from 2 to 4 through December 10th here at the Cultural Center. Now to this evening. Founded in 2008, this Gloucester Invitational Residency is the third program of the Goetemann Artist Residency. Past invited artists have been Phoebe Potts, Stephen Brosnahan, Terry, I'm gonna wait. I meant to tell you to turn your phones on.
I'll take this moment to say, take it away. Thank you for that public service announcement.
Past invited artists have been Phoebe Potts, Stevens Brosnahan, Terry Del Percio, Jason Burrows, and Jeff Marshall. Tonight is about Robin Colodzin, our 6th Gloucester resident artist. She writes, I'm a software engineer at MIT. I studied comparative literature, among other things, at Cornell. I sought out Amber Schoon for a private mentorship, providing graduate school level art education designed specifically for my interests and needs. Robin has shown extensively, highlights including invitational group shows in New York City. Her work has been exhibited by the National Collage Society in Atlanta, Georgia, a 2-part exhibit titled Women Artists Coast to Coast at Prince Street Gallery in New York City, and in Seattle, Washington, group shows at SOA in Boston, and a solo exhibition at the Rockport Art Association and Museum. She has won awards, including the Virginia Hammond Memorial Award and the Elizabeth Morse Genius Foundation Memorial Award. She was a contributor to the book Journeys to Abstraction by Sue St. John. Her next solo show will be in September 2023 on Newbury Street in Boston at the Copley Society of Art. Robin lives and works on Cape Ann with a studio in Gloucester. So I'm gonna take a breath for a minute, and now I'm going to tell you my words for Robin's work. I'm ready. When I think of Robin's work, I think of a journey, of the seriousness and yet the sometimes playfulness of the painting, of the expression of a deep love and caring, and an expression of self and womanhood, of exploration, of the layering of images so that the history of an idea starts to emerge from written words, poetry, philosophy, collage, familiar places, ancient goddesses, and the washes of colors of paints, a kind of visual poetry. Please welcome Robin Colodzin.
So, really, thank you all for being here. I'm so excited about and grateful for this time to immerse myself in making art, this residency. So thank you so much to Ruth and to all the Goetemann Artist Residency Committee members who offered me this opportunity and made it possible for me to be here tonight. So writing about my process of making art in preparation for this talk, I felt myself wondering, how much of this do I really want to share? There's this quiet, wordless space that's central for me in my relationship with my work. And I have this fear that maybe sharing it would put that at risk somehow. But really, the vulnerability both of making art and sharing it is the heart of my work. So without that, I wouldn't have anything authentic to share with you. Art is a place to be fully myself, to express myself. So in this talk, I'll share a glimpse into what art making is like for me, and the images I show will include unfinished work, studio journal pages and sketches, and sources of inspiration. So when you look at art in galleries and museums, what you see is the end product, a result. You see a snapshot of where the process of making took the artist, where they chose to stop, and what felt like something complete for them. I love the final results, a piece of artwork as it is. I also love it as an artifact, a window into the process of making it. I am enamored with the process of making art. So it starts for me with mark making, using pencils, paint, ink, collage to create shapes, lines, texture, and the vibration of color. There is a joy and a freedom in it. This is what draws me to the studio. Scribbling delights me. I intentionally allow myself to make marks that are free, loose, and don't have any agenda. I send my attention to the connection between my inner self and my hand without going through subject, language, meaning. I let the marks be messy, not pretty. These scribbles have this aliveness. They are their own beings. This one says I'm small and quiet today. This one says I'm loud. This one tangles around that one and erases another one. So at this point, I'm not working with an image in my mind that I'm trying to have show up on the paper. I'm listening. I'm listening inside myself, to my mood. I'm listening to the materials I'm working with. And then I'm listening to how the first mark talks to the second mark, and then how they both react to a third. I'm also listening to how it feels in my body, to the movement of my arm and hand. This way of relating to art crystallized for me out of conversations I had with my art teacher and mentor, Amber Schoon, who Ruth mentioned, who I've studied with for nearly 4 years now. Those who heard her talk at the Cape Ann Museum last summer know she has a very wide-ranging mind, traversing art, philosophy, history. In our studies together, one thing we read was The Origin of the Work of Art by philosopher Martin Heidegger. And I will say, reading Heidegger, I'm not sure I recommend it because I didn't really understand it until we talked about it, but there you have it. Heidegger asks, what is the being of art and of a work of art, distinct from its use? What is being when separated from purpose or end goal? So when I'm working in the studio, 3 beings come together. The human animal that I am, thinking and feeling in the moment of painting, what I'm observing in the world as I work, including observing the work itself as it unfolds, and the surface pushing back, the materials having a say, and the marks as they come together forming their own world. Mark making is more immediate than language or communication. It is expression in its most raw form, without the intermediary of words. I'm also interested in how we communicate. Words and writing almost always show up in my work. I often include a variety of languages and a mix of handwriting and printing. There's this gap between what we experience, the sensations of experience, and what we're able to then convey with language. In his book, Ways of Seeing, John Berger wrote, "Seeing comes first. Before we find words, there's the visual and visceral experience." Part of what drives me to make art is a need for a quiet, fully present attention. Drawing and painting from observation is another part of my practice, one that draws on that quality of attention. When I'm drawing from life, there are those 3 beings again, myself, the object of the drawing, a bird in this case, a photo of a bird, to be honest, and the drawing itself. The marks of the pencil have their own say because there's not a direct correspondence between what I envision and what my hand then does on paper. Perfect rendering is not my main goal in observational work. I'm not trying to control the outcome. It's more like a collaboration between the object, the materials, and myself. That being said, it can be difficult to stay in that place. I get frustrated when I don't see likeness, when what shows up on paper doesn't match what I hoped it was going to look like. I love to sit and look at my cat and draw her. I stare at her and I feel love for her, and she loves to be looked at by me. She's not a great model, she doesn't hold still, but I look and I try and see shapes and patterns. I try to see how her bones and flesh and fur make up her. I try to just be with all that, the detail of it all. I'm not asking a question, I'm not trying to understand, I'm simply adoring those details. There's a section in the book, The Little Prince, where the prince meets up with a fox, and the fox talks to him about relationship and the idea of taming someone. The little prince asks what tamed means, and the fox answers, "I'll explain. To me, you are just a little boy like any other, like 100,000 other little boys. I have no need of you, and you have no need of me. To you, I'm a fox like any other, like 100,000 other foxes. But if you tame me, you and I, we will have created a relationship. And so we will need one another. You will be unique in the world for me. If you were to tame me, my whole life would be so much more fun. I would come to know the sound of your footstep, and it would be different from all the others. At the sound of any other footstep, I would be down my hole in the earth as quick as you like. But your footstep would be like music to my ears, and I would come running up out of my hole." Later, the fox adds, "The only things you learn are the things that you tame." The time I spend paying attention forges a relationship. It makes these beings that I observe and draw special to me, more alive to me. I keep a studio journal, making notes of what I'm thinking about, things I've done in the studio, ideas for paintings. I wonder on those pages how to bring together the various imagery that I've been gathering. What I'm interested in when making a painting is bringing together a mix of non-representational spaces created through just that expressive loose mark making, recognizable figurative elements, and words. The studio journal is a great place to let all these different pieces show up without yet worrying how they will work together. Sometimes I'll use it just to play with mixes of colors, jot down fragments of ideas. I use it not only to draw, but also to write about the ideas that I'm grappling with. Reading philosophy has been a significant part of my work with Amber. Early on, we read Plato's Allegory of the Cave and talked about how the ideas in that show up in the studio. What do the voices sitting on my shoulder whispering in my ear say art is and is not? By recognizing the ideas that are just in the air that I take for granted, I've been able to make more conscious decisions about what I believe art is and can be. And this has opened up more possibilities in my creative process. I am moved by figures from the ancient world, carved, handcrafted figures of large-bodied women. The lushness of these figures, their bodies, and the way that they were handmade thousands of years ago. It's like stepping outside of culture and across time to the simple humanity of the body, the lush, large, round female body. This figure is from Southwest Arabia, made in the 4th millennium BCE. It's made of sandstone and is just 7 inches tall. And this one is also from Southwest Arabia, 4th millennium BCE. It's just 6 inches tall and made of marble. And this one is also from the same period and part of the world. It's 8.5 inches tall and made of basalt. So I have been making sketches and prints of these figures and including them in paintings. Zaftig is a Yiddish adjective meaning pleasantly plump, round, full. Literally translated, it means juicy. So I call, just for my own purposes, all of these creations Zaftigs, an adjective made into a noun. This is a sculpture of Enheduanna, a priestess and poet from ancient Mesopotamia, and the first named author in world history. In her writing, she likened the process of creating a poem to giving birth. She wrote in cuneiform, one of the earliest forms of writing, and it was made by making marks on clay tablets with a reed stylus. So I am currently in love with cuneiform. This image is an Assyrian relief panel made around 860 BCE, found in modern-day Iraq. I look at it and I know it's writing, but I don't know what it's saying. So it becomes communication in its abstract form. And it's as if I can feel the hand making these marks. They don't just skate over the paper, like pen on paper, right? Someone captured their thoughts by applying pressure to earth and left a mark. The cuneiform symbols are maps. Each grouping represents specific sounds. There's an online translator, of course, that lets you put in English and it gives you back the cuneiform, which I've already started to have fun playing with. So in addition to sources from the ancient world, I'm also looking at contemporary artists who are doing similar things to what I'm interested in, using a mix of words and imagery, whose mark making is kind of free and expressive. Cy Twombly gives himself over entirely to his vision in his work. He makes no effort to explain it to viewers or to make things pretty or easily understood. Some of his work I have no idea what to make of, and other pieces I connect to deeply. This is from his series Quattro Stagioni. So another artist I'm particularly drawn to is Sheba Sharrow. You can feel the movement of the figure and the texture of the paint. This piece is titled Clumsy Dancer, from the Pablo Neruda quote that she includes, part of which reads, "There is no insurmountable solitude. All paths lead to the same goal, to convey to others what we are. And we must pass through solitude and difficulty, isolation and silence, in order to reach forth to the enchanted place where we can dance our clumsy dance and sing our sorrowful song. So how to bring these things together? Cuneiform, Zoftigs, expressive marks, words. They say you're not supposed to show how sausages are made, but in keeping with my love of process, I'm gonna share a piece as it changed and developed. So this is an early stage, colors that were just speaking to me that day, scribbles, collage. Then I added some more collage, a mix of found text and also ink drawings of eyes, usually my own eye. And then of course more scribbling, letting myself make those free, loose movements that connect me to the surface of the painting. The colors are not playing particularly well here together. I don't yet know how the different parts talk to each other or if they really want to be in the same space with each other. I wanted a Zoftig in there, so I drew that in loosely, and also words, some just individual words, other ideas I was grappling with and reading about. In this painting, I wasn't trying to tell a single story. It was an experiment, letting all the different thoughts and gestures and beings show up, and then see where it all went. I'd been fighting with the yellow and finally decided it just didn't work in the space. It was interfering with the conversation that could be happening among different parts of the painting, so the yellow went away. The Zoftig figure in the upper left was talking to me, and I wanted her to be more solid, more fully embodied, so she became red. And the other two heads and the Zoftig just didn't seem to belong in the same space. So the two heads went away and more words came in. At the time I was working on this painting, I had started playing with sewing colored string into paper. So I did that here. I loved the feeling of doing it, the repetitive motion, and how it was a different way to make a mark. It doesn't really stand out from a distance, but it's definitely something I'm gonna come back to because I liked doing it. So the red color wasn't really working for me for the Zoftig, and I decided to play with collage and make this particular Zoftig a bit more refined. And this is where the painting is at this point. So for me, the process I went through adds a richness and aliveness to the result. I realize it may not be visible to people who simply see it in its finished form. And yet I like to imagine that something ineffable comes through because I spent the time I did, and because it has layers and things that came and went, because I let it be yellow for a while and purple and whatever other color called my name that day, and then let those colors go away when it was time for them to do so. I stayed in the experience of making it and enjoyed the back and forth between me, the materials, and the painting. This is the magic of making art for me. A way of relating that is not to achieve a particular end, but is the unfolding of creativity itself. So, I plan to use these next 4 weeks as a time of exploration, a rare pocket of life devoted to making, not producing for a specific purpose, but for the marvelous openness of creativity itself, the questions that meander, whose only urgency is my interest in them, and the mystery of where they might take me. So I'm going to be interacting with materials, paint, pencil, ink, found papers, ideas, feelings. I'll be in this expectant place of putting things together, listening inside myself to wordless emotional states, listening to the materials, and to what I'm observing, both in the world, in my thoughts, and also in the painting itself. I plan to continue to look at the ancient figures that I love and draw them, to explore in painting how to let these figures sit in an abstract space. I'll play with language and the look of words and the image of communication. I intend to spend time each day drawing, painting, and writing. I plan to start many paintings and let them evolve. I'm committing to starting paintings, but not to finishing them. Amber is encouraging me to aim for half of them to be disasters because we learn so much from the paintings that go really badly. For this month, I will choose attention and curiosity and the rigor of practice, of showing up at the studio and exploring. I call this my studio of safe uncertainty. So I admit, I feel at this point like I want to make promises about what I will accomplish, to tell you I really will finish some paintings, to justify my time. But to really honor my studio of safe uncertainty, I have to let go of productivity as a measure. What I want to do is, by nature, not in the world of measurable things. Being present is a state of being. If I were to step outside it to judge it, then I'm not in it. So I will commit to spending every day in my studio of safe uncertainty, a place for vulnerability and playfulness, a place where I can be curious and not worry about how things will turn out, and give myself up to the process of making. So thank you all for your attention and your curiosity today. And maybe we could turn the lights on and have a conversation. So, you know, I'm open to questions, but I'm also open to hearing your thoughts as well. So, hi Ruth. Yeah.
Well, that was absolutely wonderful. It feels like that's what it's really all about, and why the residency is so important.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It is an amazing time. Yeah. Susan. Hi.
So I was thinking when you were talking about hoping that the amount of time you put into work and all the thoughts you have and things you've read show in the end, even though you don't
Yeah.
think that people somehow get them. And I think after spending a lot of my life making art, that there's not much I know with certainty, but I really truly believe that everything that goes into a work of art is important, and that it does show in the end, even if you can't see it consciously, that the energy and the layers and layers of information really do add. And they say that visual images are the most efficient storehouses of information. And I think all that information does not need to show at the surface level. And that in fact, because of that, visual images are things we can take in a way that we can't.
Just
All the
words.
words.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm just, Robin, so impressed with your ability to integrate all these aspects, because you put in so many different parts to the process that you're going through. And, you know, I think all of us artists have to honor the process. I mean, that's really what it's all about. And you put it's very eloquent. And I'm really looking forward to what you're going to do.
Me too. Sam.
Hi, that's wonderful, thank you. I was curious to learn a little bit more about your materials, because I feel like that has an important role in your work. And I don't know if you're working with oil or acrylic or gloss, like there's so much going on with transparency and layering.
Yeah.
You got me at sort of lost.
Well, I don't use oil, but I use pretty much everything else I can lay my hands on. So when I'm doing work that has collage integrated, then I'm usually using acrylic. It just seems to lend itself well. But I do use layers that are thin, layers that are thick. Like I agree, the layering and the transparency of some of the colors is really important to me. I do some work in watercolor. I almost always add some pencil, be it colored pencils, like I don't know if you have the Woody Stabilo colored pencils, because they work really nicely with the acrylic, you know what I mean? They blend in a bit, but also still sit on top. I use ink, you know, like India ink sometimes, and I love the difference that creates. So yeah, a little bit of everything.
What's your adhesives?
Mostly matte medium, sometimes PVA glue. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi.
The work that you showed in progress then,
Yes.
what's the scale of that, and then what's the
Um,
time frame? Is that over a month or every day it's changing, or when did you take?
Oh, the one that was in progress, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
in progress,
Gotcha.
yes.
It's like 22, it's not big, it's like 22 by 22-ish, something like that. And it was something that I started, spent a few days on, hated it, and it had to face the wall and be in the corner until it got itself together, which it did for, I think, months. And then I picked it up again, and then it happened probably over a course of a few days. So, you know, yeah. I mean, I bicker with my paintings a lot, I do. And I don't know if they have feelings about sitting in the corner, but it makes me feel better, so, yeah. Yeah. So, hi.
I'm curious about the phenomena of the blank canvas and like, oh, now I gotta fill this. And do you start with the scribble and let that lead you, or do you have an idea and the scribble has to follow the idea?
No, not the second one. So one thing, I mean, I'll tell you what I set up for myself for the studio, the residency time, because to go into this open time of 4 weeks, it's awesome, but it also could be a little paralyzing. So I've structured myself. And so some of what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start each morning with an 18 by 24 piece of paper, and it's gonna be purely expressive mark making where I have no intention of working with it again. It's gonna be like a 20-minute thing. And to answer your earlier question, with working on that sort of thing, I start with paint usually, but I put it on pretty loosely, so it is like making marks. It is almost, you know, it's similar to that. I always bring in scribbles and lines, and because it really does give me a sense of connection to the paper, to the canvas, whatever I'm working on. And it really lets me kind of feel into who am I in this moment, right? Do I want my moves big and sharp? Do I want little marks? You know, like just, and not analyzing that, you know, but just to really be connected in that way. So that's one way I start. And a lot of times that I do that and I put it away, and then when I want to start a painting, maybe I pull that out and use it as a background. But the other thing I'm going to be doing is some observational work in the middle of the day. So I'm going to work on a self-portrait every day for just a certain amount of time, because I think that is part of the rigor of practice. Really helps you learn your materials, it really helps you see. So that'll be another thing I'll do. And then I will be working on paintings, you know, with the capital P. And in those, I am gonna start with some kind of idea, but it's a pretty loose idea. Like I'll probably start with one of the, you know, those ancient figures that I love and say, what kind of space does she want to be in? And so I'll be like, let's start red. I don't know, you know, like, so it's not an idea in the sense of a picture, but it is an idea in the sense of who do I want in that, you know, who do I want? Like what beings do I want in there? You gotta start with somebody. And then sometimes it'll be with what have I been reading lately, right? You know, there's this philosopher, I'm struggling with this idea, or there's a book I read, and, you know, sometimes I'll start just by writing. And I don't mean writing fancy or writing pretty. I mean literally just writing this book, and I don't know what to make of page 7, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I just write. And that usually gets covered over, but it starts me. So lots of different ways to start is what I'd say.
I just wanted to ask you, when you talked about the analogy of the little prince
Yeah.
and the fox, can you talk more about that? And that, how that metaphor works with your painting? Initially I was like, oh, forget.
Well, yes.
But
But
that kind of goes along. But can you talk more about that?
I think that it's that quality of attention and the time spent. I think that when you spend time in a really attentive way, I mean, I think that's what, you know, the fox and the boy, that was the idea of taming. There's something very special that happens there. And there's something that happens that doesn't happen in other ways. I think we live in a world where our attention is typically quite fractured, you know, where conversations are skating around and we're pulled here and we're pulled there. And I guess for me, it spoke to this quality of presence and attention and also patience, you know, sort of listening to each other. And that is really important to me and a little hard to come by. sometimes, you know. I hope that answers the question. So, Kara, my cousin Kara.
You live in this beautiful place, and I know you take a lot from here. Do you feel like either in actuality or in your thoughts it somehow translates into your art?
So, one of the other things I'm going to do during the residency is spend time outside drawing. And I do draw. I'm not a skilled landscape either drawer or painter, but you notice shapes, you notice things. So I'm gonna say indirectly, you know? Like one of the things I love up here is the spaciousness, that sense of spaciousness you get from essentially being on an island and having ocean all around you. And that feeling is important to me. And so looking at the ocean and being outside comes into it in that way, rather than a direct, I do a painting of a scene, yeah. Steve?
So there have been other questions that related to my question, but sort of about how you set up and how you prepare the space. To go a little bit further, curious about your own personal state when you start. Do you treat it kind of ritualistically, or do you have a time and place that you do it? And I'll leave that open.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I have lots of great rituals that I intend to do, and sometimes I do them. So I think it's helpful to have some sort of rituals. So for example, in terms of my state and where I am, it's not about waiting to be in a particular mood, because no, and part of why I paint the way I do is because it's to find out what mood I'm in. I mean, it's a way to really just be there and show up and kind of figure that out. I do have some rituals. When I first get to my studio, I have a little mantra poem that I read that is about, that I read to myself aloud, kind of like hello studio kind of thing, and just welcoming all of myself to it. And then I start by writing very briefly in a studio journal, like, what are the thoughts and things cluttering up my head right now? And it could be, I forgot to take the trash out. It could be, I really want to think about that painting, and whatever. It could be anything. But I don't spend a lot of time like processing it. I just kind of name them. So that's a helpful ritual for me to kind of enter into the space, and knowing what I'm going to start with. That's why I'm saying I'm like going to start with these gestures and these mark making, because it gets me going. Yeah. So I think we need to wrap up. Is that right?
I wanted to say something.
Oh yes,
before we do.
Ruth, please.
There's a person that I didn't realize was going to be here, and I would like to acknowledge him, Mark Goetemann.
Please, please, please.
Mark is Gordon's son. He has helped us to create the Cove Gallery, which is in place of his parents' Goetemann Gallery. And actually, Jeff and I and Vanessa and Chris will be having a show there in the middle of June for a month. But Mark has, he's really been with us the whole way, and it's a wonderful legacy from his family.
Yeah, really, second that. And I have a show there also in the summer later after you guys. So it's my favorite place to show. It really, truly is. It's a really special space. Yeah.
We're lucky to have it. We're lucky to have Ruth.
Yeah.
Everybody who's doing so much work to put it all together.
Thanks. So thank you everybody ever so much. And I have an email list. Let me rephrase that. I have the idea of starting an email list. And I have a book back there if you want to sign up for it, because at some point, not right away, I'm gonna start doing messages from the studio of safe uncertainty. We'll see how that goes. But kind of just the same thing of process, and here's what I'm thinking about today.
And you might announce your shows.
I think we did. So the Cove Gallery in the summer.
But I mean, with your email list, you might announce your shows.
Yeah, maybe. So thanks again, everybody. Thank you, Ruth, and everybody, and Mark. Yeah.
Thank you.